gear is what determines if you can keep hunting.
So I have that one little thing to hold on to.
Because on a backpack hunt like that, we might not get sun or any opportunity to drive for 3 days, 4 days.
That no rain gear can survive Alaska.
Welcome to the Built to Hunt podcast, brought to you by the team of hunt advisors at the Huntin magazine, where we are dedicated to helping our members go on more hunts with better information. Join Huntin today at huntinfool.com.
Okay, welcome to the Built to Hunt podcast. On today's podcast, we wanted to talk a little bit about gear. It's not spring yet. We're still full of winter storms, but Brady here in the office, our lovely in-house cameraman, he is very opinionated about gear, so he's always good to have on. And he's been working a lot with our Gearful team, which is our in-house store for all things gear related. We are now selling things online at gearful.com. And here in our Cedar City office as well, if you want to stop by and pick something up. But we've thought a lot about gear recently.
Yes.
And we've been on some very interesting trips, mainly in the North Country. And so the question I posed when I was talking to you, Jessica, about this podcast was down insulation versus synthetic. And I think it's a good topic, but I don't want to get into just the basics of what is down, what is synthetic. Most of you probably know that, but let's talk about some real world applications and good and bad.
Yeah, that's something that's been covered a lot in a lot of different podcasts, but I feel like even AAA learned something on this last trip.
Oh, I definitely learned something, and I'll cover my butt a little bit, but yes. So we went on a goat hunt together, first part of September. Jessica, that was your second trip to Alaska?
Correct. First hunt, second trip.
But your first trip was very wet and rainy as well, correct?
Correct.
What did you take from that trip that you maybe thought, I should bring this piece or not this piece? Like, did you learn anything going up there in July and getting rained on for a week?
That no rain gear can survive Alaska.
That's a good point.
Yes.
I mean, it's a little bit different because, yeah, we were dropped off and we were camping. It was for the listeners, it was a women's retreat. It was not a hunt. It was 15 women that had never met before, and we all got together and went camping and hiking and learned a bunch of survival tactics, I guess. I would have said if I could bring extra rain gear, I would have on my goat hunt, but you have camp on your back.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it was a totally different experience. So even if I wanted to apply what I'd learned earlier that year, it's like I still have the boundaries of how much can I carry. I'm a 130-pound girl packing for a 7-day trip. I mean, what do you do?
No, that's a big part of it because we're all tough, right, in quotes. But there's a big difference in getting rained on when you're up here on the Beaver Mountain and you can see your truck 2 or 3 miles away.
Yes.
You know that there's a taco shop just down the street and a clothes dryer at home. You can withstand a pretty bad rainstorm even without a rain jacket and just say, oh, I'll be okay. Because in a few hours, I'll be in my truck, I'll be eating tacos, headed home.
Yeah.
That's a very big difference when you're shopping for gear that you have to sleep in. You have to wear the next day and the next day. And like Jessica said, you have to carry it on your back. A very big difference. So I think I want to mainly talk about the extreme or when you have to carry this. So now weight is very important. You can't have extras. And your packing list is pretty important.
Definitely.
So Brady, you remember, let's walk our listeners through getting up to that trip. It was a little chaotic. I was on a grizzly bear hunt.
Oh, that's right.
In northwest Alaska. Remember, I flew back to Anchorage, hadn't washed a stinking thing, had blood on everything. Everything was wet. Everything was wet. And we met you guys in Anchorage, jumped in the car, drove down to Homer, and it was late by the time we got down there, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And I basically exploded our Airbnb with my gear to try to dry it out, wash it, repack, and going from more of a base camp type hunt to a backpack hunt, that's where the wheels started falling off the bus for me.
Yeah.
Honestly.
The living room showed that.
I would say we noticed.
The amount of food and
so like
gear.
And I've done this for a long time, but I've never got really good at a gear list for each hunt. So I have this ginormous gear list that I say, I'm going to go through with a highlighter, think about this trip I'm going on, and highlight everything off my master gear list that I want to take on this trip. So I end up with the same gear list for each hunt with different highlights. I don't know if that's the right way to do it. But what I remember what happened that night is I've got the washing machine going, the dryer going, and Brady's working on his snacks, of course, counting out his gummy bears and his chips and his cheese and everything else he eats, bags of chips. So Brady's working on his food, and long story short, I neglect to bring my synthetic insulation layer.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you accidentally forgot it.
You did not admit that until
No,
this
hold
moment.
on.
Oh, geez, calling me
The
out.
AAA.
I'm pretty sure I said it when I was shivering with my wet down on the goat hunt a week later.
Oh, wait. The kenai.
Yes.
Okay,
I forgot my kenai.
Okay, I did know this.
Yes. So on the goat hunt, I forgot my kenai insulation, which is kind of you take it no matter what.
Yes,
piece.
definitely.
Like, are you a soft shell guy, Brady? Do you usually bring a soft shell?
Well, I just finished recording a video where I looked into a soft shell a lot, and Forrest and I were actually having a conversation about this. A soft shell's ideal for, like you're saying, you're on the Beaver, rainstorm's coming, it's getting nasty, it's snowing, whatever, but you're going home that night. Soft shell on a backpacking trip, I think, is just a mistake.
Waste of weight, space.
Yeah, they're not packable, they're heavy, and they're not that waterproof. So I'd say no on that trip.
Okay. That's very interesting. Did you own a guide jacket, Jess? Did you buy one from Kuyu?
No.
Like, Kuyu for years has said it's been one of their top sellers, right? You buy the
Right.
attack pant and the guide jacket. And maybe we all do that because we don't know what else to buy right out of the gate. But my guide jacket that I have from 2011 is pretty much brand new. It's nice. I'll sell it to you if you'd like it.
No, not the guide jacket.
But it's a great piece, and it's almost like a everyday piece. You'd wear it out to dinner, and it's a nice jacket. But I never take it on backpack hunts.
Yeah, I don't think anyone should take a soft shell on a backpack hunt if they're expecting rain. Like you said, a hard shell is going to be more packable, lighter weight, and if you're hiking, wear something thinner. Like I've seen on our sheep hunt in Alaska, Austin, you were running just your base layer, and it was pouring down rain and cold, but you were moving, so you were hot. And it was, as soon as you stopped, you took that off and put on something dry, and it was good.
It's always a hard transition, right? When you know you have something dry in your pack, and it's tucked away in its nice little waterproof sack, and then you have to decide, do I take that out and wear it? Both for water coming from the outside, rain, and water coming from the inside, perspiration. You've got to decide if you pull that out or not. And it's hard to know what to do. So back to the go hunt. I forget my kenai. Straight up forget it. It's packed in the bag in the back of the car when we fly out the next day. So I'm like, I'm going super light. I'm going to have to haul Jessica over 3 mountain ranges to shoot a goat. And Larry's going to shoot a goat. We're going to shoot 2 of them. We're going to be super heavy, so we're all trying to go light. Brady's piling as many snacks as he can on top of his clothes. Brady never complains. He never gets cold, whatever. But I took my Super Down Pro, which has been my trusty treated down, right? The feathers are treated. They don't absorb water. Well, it's true, but I've also had that jacket for a few years. So those down feathers lose some of their loftiness just from use, washing, and part of that treatment falls apart.
Yeah.
So I'm left with Super Down Pro pants and jacket, and I didn't have much else. I had like a mid layer and a base layer, and then Super Down, and then rain jacket. So I was missing that key soft shell synthetic insulation.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Not quite soft shell, but that extra insulation layer that's going to stay drier closer to your skin, right?
Right.
One thing that I noticed you doing a lot, which I think is something that hasn't been talked about, is like saving your gear. Because on a backpack hunt like that, we might not get sun or any opportunity to drive for 3 days, 4 days. And we were sitting under the tarp that one day, way the heck back there, pouring down rain, and Austin was sitting, leaning against the tundra. It's just like a wet sponge, with his down coat. And I'm just watching him go, and I'm like, that seems like a mistake. Like, there's no way that's – and, I mean, it's Austin. You don't question him too much. He knows what he's doing. But
Here we go.
I had the poncho.
Meanwhile,
See?
I was waking up in a island of water
Yeah.
with all
First
my
of all,
gear in the water.
We're going to get to that story, Jess.
Yeah,
But
we're not
first of
there
all,
yet.
Brady has been sitting on this word poncho, waiting to dump it on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And he just dumped it.
It
'Cause-
was
It was amazing.
legit.
Because
Okay,
listen.
let's talk about two things. I want you to talk about the poncho and the tarp.
'Kay.
Those are similar.
True.
and
You had the
why.
tarp.
Yep.
So
a lot
Austin-
of hunters don't carry them.
Austin was the community guy. He brought the tarp for all of us. It was a Dyneema tarp. Being able to set that up when the rain came in hard was key. We fit 4 of us under there and stayed drier than we would have.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing was morale, just having some sort of shelter.
You cannot, when we talk about rain gear and you pull that hood over your head, you cannot be beat down on rain for 5 hours and think you're going to be sane.
No,
like
it doesn't
it'll
work.
drive you crazy.
Absolutely. So that tarp fixed things. But the second layer, the second piece of protection from the rain that everyone should have is the poncho.
But not all ponchos are created equal.
No. So you want to
So explain this $4 poncho to
How about
us,
that
Brady.
intro for you? I'm feeding it to
$25
you.
like it.
Yeah, it's not a cheap one. I bought the cheap one. He invested.
Ooh, yeah.
Solid life choice.
$25
$25.
poncho. Okay.
Anyways, it's
Just
just
got
like
snaps.
no, it's buttons. It could be improved. Anyways, it's just a thin piece of that waterproof ripstop fabric, like what they make a tent out of, right?
Yep.
But having that to sit down on, like where we were at, was a bit of a slope. Austin was sitting down on a butt pad, but then when he would put his elbow in the dirt, his arm would just get soaked. Through his down coat, his insulation would be toast. Everything's gone. With the poncho, you can lean back and you're dry still. And it sounds so stupid, but it's like you've got that extra protection. You're just out of the water when you're sitting there for hours. You're cooking meals, you're eating snacks, whatever you're doing.
You cooked a meal inside of your poncho.
This is true, and we didn't have the tarp set up.
And I think it's worth noting again, even though we said in the intro, that you're a camera guy. So having the ability
yes.
to just hide your equipment easily
Also a big
underneath
deal.
that was pretty cool.
It's the same principle of like an umbrella. An umbrella
Yeah.
is very nice to have because it's not beating down on you. You have some space to breathe, whatever. It dries easily. You can shake it off.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously an umbrella is not going to work in Alaska in the rain, but it's the same principle as why you like your poncho.
And it fit over your
Yes.
pack, too.
Yeah, I stayed real dry. Back to the argument of down versus synthetics, though. If you had that down and if you would have had a poncho, I think you would have been all right with your super down.
Well, I'll explain how my super down got wet, but that was getting closer to day 3.
Yes. This was after that day, wasn't it?
Right. So hiking in, super nice day. Second day, it starts raining. We start looking at the forecast. It's probably not going to let up. So that changes a little bit about what gear you use, how you use it, when you expend it or not, because to your point, a poncho, you can wring it out and it's virtually dry at that point. Same thing goes with like a tent fabric.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of movement shakes it off. It can become dry. But when you get, even as a synthetic insulation, fully wet, now you need either sun, heat, or wind in order to dry it out.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, and you're probably not going to have all of those in Alaska. So I feel like, okay, we're getting a little more wet. Jessica's probably thinking it's a little more cold than she expected it to be, especially when you're not moving. Hiking, totally different story. But then we move camp way up on the mountain. Your trusty guide finds a nice slopey spot with gravel that is impossible to flood.
It seemed like it.
Right? It's gravel. It's got holes in it.
Porous.
We're on top of the ridge. It's porous. There's holes, like you say, all over. There's no way that's going to flood. So we set up our 4 tents, which is another part of staying dry. Bring your own tent. Helps you keep your stuff inside. You don't have to have your stuff outside all the time or squished into the corner. When you have your own tent, you can organize better and stay drier.
Totally agree.
And I remember in the middle of the night, what were the first words you said, Jess?
I don't know. I'm floating.
Austin, I'm underwater. And like, I don't understand what that means. And at that point, it wasn't getting that bad. But by morning, I realized that I was completely underwater. I had slid off my pad, and the bottom half of my sleeping bag was underwater. And my nice down jacket and pants that I had laid off to the side, spread out nice in my tent, were completely submerged. What about you, Jess? In your tent?
I woke up and my boat was underwater,
Completely.
completely underwater.
Yeah, this isn't like a dramatized, like, oh,
No.
we're underwater, like it's wet on the ground. No,
I
No.
can totally
Her
be
boat
dramatic, but this
was
is not one of those.
literally underwater.
Completely.
Thankfully, first of all, I'm not a large human, so I can fit on a pad pretty good with a little bit of space, but also I sleep like a dead person on my back. I don't move around much. So I woke up, and it didn't completely hit me until I started to sit up, and I could feel, like when you're on like a float in a pool, right, where it kind of bends in the butt. I'm like, that's not normal. And I look around, and the rest of my same thing. My base layers, that I
Your
had taken off.
boots?
My boots were soaked. My boots had tipped over. I wanted to say tumped over. My family makes fun of me when I use that word. Anyway, my boots fell over and filled up with water. And so I think that's actually how I woke up and was like, I'm underwater. And you could hear me pouring my boot
Pouring
out.
your boot.
Yeah.
And then I started getting worried. I remember as the guide, I've been there before. I've done this. I'm like, oh, I'll be okay. Just kind of shuffle this to the side, put my boots on.
I wish the viewers could see the nervousness in your eyes, though.
Yes. I'm like, we're not done with this hunt yet. We haven't even killed anything yet. And I go over to your tent, and I'm like, oh, you are very underwater. Like spotting scope, completely submerged, tripod, everything underwater. Luckily, you had a 4-inch tall inflatable pad because there was 3 inches of water around it. But you were very close to getting soaked.
Yeah.
In your tent. So what had happened is this valley we camped in had filled up. Well, I didn't picture the water to fill up hundreds of feet, over a span of a half an acre. And basically, we camped in a lake.
Yes.
Larry was on a little better spot. He was a little sloped. He had more of a river running under him to go fill up our lake where we were at. So he's like, you just had to stay out of the ripple in the tent floor and you could stay dry. But I remember feeling like this is turning into a little more of a serious situation. We know we could always hike back down to the beach, get dry under the big spruce trees, build a fire if we had to. But it's a little more serious when you're like, I'm running short on food. I only have so many days. I have to be able to keep hunting. And gear is what determines if you can keep hunting or not.
Absolutely.
Physically, we're all in great shape.
Yeah.
Jessica's mental, physical capabilities, way ahead of where everybody thought you might be, Jess. You were
Thank you.
very prepared. Not that we doubted you, but we were ready for it. But your gear could determine if your hunt's over or not.
Like from an actual, I don't want to say survival, but like you
Borderline.
literally can't keep going. Like,
Right.
it's not safe to keep going.
It's not safe. And so I tried to set up now my tarp underneath between the tents and try to create a drying space because that's what you really don't have. All of this gear will dry.
Mm-hmm.
Nice gear, synthetic fabrics will dry fairly fast.
If
It'll
there's wind.
surprise you if there's a little bit of wind movement because you've got 90% humidity. So the air is not going to just dry it out.
Right.
You have no sunshine, no way to heat. You can't waste your fuel on that, but wind will dry it out. But this is where I would say if I take a Kenai insulation, synthetic, polyester, and fully submerge it to where you're wringing it out and hang it up versus fully submerge my super down.
Used super down.
Use super down.
Right.
And just until that thing is totally soaked, I can dry that Kenai so much faster.
And it's going to keep you warmer right out of the gates.
Because it's got a little bit of loft left to it.
Exactly.
You remember my super down, Jess. It was like
Soaked.
just a ball of...
It was useless.
Completely.
It's basically down to just the liner fabric thickness of a layer.
Yeah.
Because all the feathers had sunk. All the down had sunk into each pocket.
Right.
And it was
there was
soaked.
pieces where it's like you could feel the inner and outer like rubbing together. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing between that.
And that's all I had. So now I was stuck with convection heat, which is your own body. So I would wear my base layer, trying to dry it out, my mid layer, and my rain jacket, because I had nothing else to go in between for the next 4 days.
That's just too cold, though.
Because that down never dried the rest of the hunt. I was never able to get it dry to where it was
Jeez.
lofty again. Where I knew if I had synthetic, like my Kenai, I could have.
Mhm.
What did we learn?
Well, you asked
What
at
did
the,
you learn?
at the beginning of the podcast. You said, "What did you learn on that girls' trip going into your goat hunt?" And I remember you. So I learned this on my girls' trip, but I think you even like emphasized it again going into the goat hunt, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's fine," but you cannot possibly put things in dry bags and Ziplocs and double layer them. Like, it's not too much to double Ziploc things or put a heavy duty dry bag and compress it. Make sure every single item in your bag. Like, I know that seems probably like a silly thing to mention because you're a guide and you do that anyway. But if I would have
Don't
just done
forget.
that when I slept in the tent that night,
Good point.
I might have had some clothes
Right.
that were then wet when I woke up.
No, it's
and then even like keeping a dry pair of socks in my bag at all times. Like, I learned that on the girls' hunt, and I used that multiple times. Like, just coming back to a dry, warm pair of socks, and then putting them back in the bag
for the next day.
for the next day. So I have that one little thing to hold on to.
Yeah.
Was super helpful.
I think that's a good point. We tend to read gear titles and products by just their face value. And what I mean is, oh, there's a pack rain cover. So that if I buy this $40 pack rain cover, it means that everything in my pack is protected from rain and wet. That's not how it is.
No.
As soon as you have wet gloves on and you're digging around in your pack and you're trying to get your stuff out and it's rainy or misty, everything in your pack is now wet, to your point. Whereas if it was in Ziplocs and it was in dry bags labeled and it didn't just turn into a mess inside your backpack or in your tent every day, it's going to save you a lot of heartache later on.
For sure.
I know I always went by the rule, if I'm going to leave my tent somewhere in a spike camp, when I wake up, I always take my sleeping bag and stuff it back in the dry bag and leave it in the tent in a dry bag. So if my tent blew up or something flooded, at least I knew my sleeping bag was my lifeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I still did that on this trip, except for the night when I got soaked while in said sleeping bag. Mistake number 2, letting my sleeping bag get wet. Is even when I came back to camp at night, I'm feeling a little better. The bottom half of my sleeping bag, you remember seeing it? It was just like
Disaster.
It looks
useless.
sad.
As useless as the super down jacket
Yeah.
because it was so wet, like hours underwater that night. And there was just no way to spread that out and get it dry. There was no way I was going to loft those feathers up again until we had a fire or got out of there.
Right.
And
But even a fire, what are you going to do for your sleeping bag without melting it? Like, to dry that down on the inside of a sleeping bag?
Without a
take
big enough
forever.
tent. So that was the other thing on my women's trip. We had like wood
Bigger
covered with, like, we had a tarp covering a big stack of wood where we could start a fire. Granted, it took a long time. But then we had an extra tent where we hung wet clothes to have that draft, and that, like, it had zero purpose other
Yeah.
than drying our stuff. We didn't exactly have that.
Yeah,
A
you
little
can't. You
one
can't afford
person,
that.
2P tent, you just don't have the space.
Yeah,
No.
it's different.
There's no trees. There's no clotheslines. And I see this on my sheep hunts. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I still make mistakes. I've questioned since then, should I take a synthetic sleeping bag instead of a down? You know, we're always so hung up on weight savings. You got to be the lightest possible. But on that trip, I would have loved to have a heavy sleeping bag if it was dry. I would have traded any weight to be more dry. And granted, this was a goat hunt, which are generally coastal, very humid, very wet. We experienced that firsthand. But there definitely makes me question how I use down insulation layers and should I continue to take them on really wet hunts. This segment of the podcast is brought to you by Onyx Hunt. The Onyx Elite membership has all the maps and data for all 50 states and Canada. It works with or without cell coverage and has all the GPS tools you might need to know where you are, where you stand and where you're going while out in the field. It also provides you with an exclusive set of services and discounts to partner companies and products that you're going to need for this next season. You can save money this hunting season when you use code HUNTINFOOL and get 20% off your onX Elite or Premium membership. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt.
So what I did on that hunt is I had a Kenai vest, synthetic vest, and then a down coat over that. So 2 insulation layers. And if I wouldn't have had the down coat, I would have been okay with just the vest. If I wouldn't have had the vest, I would have been okay with just the coat. But in my opinion, bringing a vest is a great way to cut weight but still have a spare, right? Because your core is what really matters. Your arms can be cold and you can deal with it.
It'll be fine.
If your core is warm enough, you're doing good. And that synthetic breathes well too. And I remember a couple times we were hiking and you guys had to change layers. I didn't because I had that vest on, so my armpits could breathe. The vest was breathable. I could hike in it in the afternoons just fine.
See, drying stuff by convection, it does work, especially when you're hiking.
Oh, like, big time.
I'm used to putting on my synthetic layer like a Kenai and put your rain jacket over it, hike a little ways. Your body heat will dry out that synthetic. But to dry out a down layer like that is
not happening, man.
It's not. Like,
it's just not.
Maybe it can. Science says it can, but not for me. It's not going to happen. I don't have the strength to wear it that long to be able to dry that out. Where synthetic, I feel like you can. So what I would switch is I would take Kenai pants, which I love the Kenai zip off.
The synthetic pants.
Yep. The zip off pants and my Kenai jacket. I wouldn't forget that. And if I still wanted to take the down outer layers, they don't weigh that much. You still can.
Nothing. Yeah.
But I see that as a supplement to stay alive synthetically on these very, very wet hunts.
And you had the Pro down.
Correct. The thicker one.
Which is what I wish I would have had.
Because you only had the Ultra at that time.
Yes, and I was cold.
So what do you wish you would have taken? The Pro vest, Pro pants?
Those are not, at the time, I'm not sure now, but at the time they were not available for women. So as soon as I got back, I purchased a Pro jacket, a size up, because it was the only thing available, just to go back to Kodiak in November, because I was like, I'm not doing that again.
I'm not doing it.
And that is my favorite jacket ever. Now I just got to get one in my size. Or hopefully they'll come out with one.
What about gloves? What do you wish you would have taken on the goat hunt?
Gosh, those glommets, the
Super down.
Oh man, yeah.
And you took those on the Kodiak trip.
Correct. I got some. It was another item I purchased.
Interesting.
Those are a game changer when you're sitting there glassing, especially when it's like we were socked in for so long. And any chance that we had to glass, it was just like, get behind the glass, get behind the glass.
That's
sitting
true.
there for so long, like my hands were freaking freezing.
I felt like though. Again, to criticize, because it was your gloves that she was wearing, right?
Correct.
So we only had the one pair, but that pair got wet on like day 2 of rain.
They did, but they still made a difference.
Did they? So
They
that's what I was going to ask.
still made a
Is
huge difference.
I don't know if it's the heat from your hands, how you can keep those drier overall.
because your hands heat quite a bit
more than your whole body, your whole jacket getting wet. I don't know if that's what it is, but
Also,
it does seem easier to keep those dry.
they were soaked, but if you heat up a meal and hold it, that helped. Like under the tarp when we were sitting there.
That was the only time we had anything warm.
anything warm was
the peak meal is
food.
coming out. Get ready.
So I'd
some
keep my hands
spices.
on it and then put it like on my stomach or something just to like try to heat me up. But that helped the gloves a little bit too.
It is amazing how you really have no source of dryness or heat. I mean, so many people that only hunt down in the lower 48, they talk about campfires. They talk about stoves. It's like we don't even pull our jet boils out hardly unless we're cooking a meal. Like you don't just turn your jet boil on just to see the little flame. Like you don't have the fuel for that.
And even if you do, it creates moisture when you burn jet boil fuel. That's not going to dry you that well.
No.
Not up there.
And so many people that haven't been to Alaska say, well, why don't you start a fire? There's nothing to burn. And even what there is to burn up where you're hunting, you couldn't get it dry in a year to get it to burn up there. Like,
no
what
way.
would you burn?
No way.
Yeah, it's a whole different world. And so take home, follow what Jessica says, buy the big down puffy stuff. Follow what we say, get a poncho. Brady says get a
Yes.
poncho. He's going to have Brady's own labeled ponchos coming out soon.
One day, baby.
Paco's ponchos, what
That's
do you call
right.
them?
We should just get some here, put our logo on it, and sell it in the Gear Full
Selling
store.
with Gearful.
Yeah.
Be saving lives, man. I'm telling you.
We can't launch this podcast until that's ready.
No, but ponchos were always a joke where I came from in Arizona in the day because they were so thin and cheap, they would get shredded, right,
Mhm.
by anything you walk through. Well, we're talking about Alaska, a lot of this. It's just you're going to be sitting and watching it rain, but you got to get the rain off of your body.
A tarp, a
Anything.
poncho, any way to just take shelter because there's no trees up there.
No trees. You need to get it off your head and off your body because rain gear does work. I love the rain gear. I've worn the Yukon rain gear, the Chugach rain gear, all of them. But think about all the ways rain can run down and then under
That's
your
the thing.
glove and it starts seeping backwards up your arms and you lift your arm up and now the rain came down your forearm.
And even your
Like-
elbows or your butt, like those spots end up
It's
getting
contact,
wet. Like,
right?
yeah.
You will get wet in rain gear, but good gear will dry faster.
Yes.
That's why we spend all this money on gear, not to stay dry, because you're not going to stay dry. It's impossible. We proved that. But you can stay comfortable with good gear. And what is it? Lance Kronberger, the outfitter up there, says, we specialize in cold, wet, and miserable. That's his tagline. And he's like, if you don't like it, hunt with someone else. Because you're going to be cold, you're going to be wet, and you're going to be miserable. But that's Alaska.
And then you're going to want to go right back.
Exactly.
Like, what is wrong with us?
And you're going to love it.
And you're going to like it. Now, a couple new things I've got since that go hunt were the Kenai gloves, all synthetic gloves. I took those to Kodiak. Really like those because you have full fingers. They're not real thick. I do like that piece of synthetic glove, and they still pack really tight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of a fan for that Kenai line of gear. It's just unfortunate when you forget it on a very important hunt.
Yes, it is.
What do you think, Brady? Synthetic pieces people should look at?
Honestly, I've loved having the vest, and I think that so actually Forrest and I were just talking about this. If you're going to get down, get the thickest down you can.
The puffiest, loftiest.
The warmest down piece that you can find because you're never going to wear that down when you're moving. Not for very long anyways.
Yep.
You just can't. It's stupid.
Yep.
And when you're still, you're never going to be too warm. And the cost of weight and pack size is going to be negligible for the extra amount of insulation that you get.
So if you were consulting someone like Jessica, you know she runs cold.
Mm-hmm.
When she was going to buy the Super Down Ultra line, you would say, hey, it's not worth
big
it.
time.
Go up 2 or 3 ounces and buy the Super Down Pro anywhere possible.
Not
'Cause-
quite the burner.
Not well.
Burner
The
is
burner
next
would have been,
level.
but that would have been heavy on. Like it just would have been bulky on that trip. I don't know
Yeah,
if that would have been
It
ideal.
is hard to pack
No,
that
I'm
all
just
the way down.
for listeners
Right,
who are like,
right.
well, what about the burner? I'm sure someone probably thought that. I would say do not go to that extent. The Pro is
Not for this. Hunt.
Not for backpacking.
Not for
Correct.
backpacking, yes. But I think having the warmest down layer that you can and then making sure that you have a synthetic insulation piece or two, like a vest and a jacket maybe, or a good mid layer, just a way that you can still be okay if that down gets compromised.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that's the move. And don't be afraid to bring an extra 15, 20 ounces of insulation layers
It's
on a
worth it.
backpacking hunt like that because it's so worth it.
Yeah, I see a lot of people that want to bring extras, right? Like, I want an extra pair of pants. I want an extra shirt. That's really cool, but you probably don't have the space for it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, extra socks, great. That's super important to have a dry pair of socks. Extra pair of gloves or layers of gloves, great. But we all went in there with one pair of pants, right?
And I'd say pants are okay like that.
Like, that's
I would
all you've
Yeah.
got. Like, you just have to deal with it.
I did bring up an extra pair of bottom base layers to sleep in. Again, just to make sure I was,
Sure.
Because you
Dry
sleep
at
cold.
night.
Yep.
yeah.
And you
So-
had a big, thick sleeping bag too.
Yeah, but that's, again, a pair of socks and some pants. It's worth that if you run cold. Not necessarily an extra, like, synthetic jacket or
Yeah.
pants.
One other thing, this is related, but let's talk about you talked about your poncho, being able to get out of the rain. And we always say, what's more important, a sleeping bag or a tent? survival situation. I used to always say it's sleeping bag. Like when I would fly with my pilot, and it was like, just to be safe, let's grab our inReach, sat phone, some food, and sleeping bag, just in case we get stuck somewhere.
Yep.
Okay, it's important. But should we have grabbed a tent instead of a sleeping bag in a survival mode? If you have to choose one, I'm a believer that a tent is a little more of a save your own butt product than a sleeping bag. Couple reasons. We learned this on our hunt. So we had Mountain Star tents, which are a mesh inner body. And then the outer shell doesn't obviously go all the way to the ground. It's close, but it allows for quite a bit of ventilation.
Yes.
So it's hard for your body heat to heat up the Mountain Star tent.
Yeah, big time.
Very hard. So if you said, don't have a sleeping bag, crawl in that tent, it's still going to be pretty dang cold. Whereas we had the Storm Star tent that I brought, and I ended up switching you into my Storm Star tent, Jessica, so that your body heat, because the Storm Star is a full tent fabric, not a mesh. So when you zip that all the way up and you breathe for a few minutes, you move around, all of a sudden it's 20 degrees warmer than the outside air because you're insulated. Kind of to your poncho thing. You've got to be able to get out of it.
Yeah.
But don't discount what a tent can provide in heat and warmth.
That's a good point.
Just by having some warm air, your breath moving around, whatever it may be. Because that Mountain Star, it's drafty when it's windy up there.
But the upside to that is you can dry.
You can.
Right? You don't
For
get
sure.
the condensation, and you can dry stuff quicker than you would inside of your Mountain Star tent.
No, you still have to vent a Mountain Star for sure. Or a Storm Star.
Sorry.
I'm not saying you don't have to vent it and you're just going to sweat to death. But
if you had to,
the Mountain
close
Star,
that thing up, and
very cold. So I got the fortunate duty of using Jessica's Mountain Star with my very wet sleeping bag, very drafty. I remember trying to like drape my wet clothes over the mesh so it would like insulate me a little bit, and I shivered quite a bit.
Did you really?
Oh, I did.
You should have come into my tent. I was nice and cozy.
And share your snacks.
I could hear you munching all the time.
You should have seen.
That's
I
Brady.
had a whole grocery store set up. You could have come in and gone shopping. Could
Brady,
have snuggled.
Brady, you've learned a lot.
Is that the trade out?
Yeah.
You can get some food, but we got to cuddle.
I don't think I'll be sharing a tent with Brady. I remember when you shared with Luke that one night, and it stunk so bad in there. After a 10-day sheep hunt, that was stinky.
That wasn't cool.
And we were really wet on that hunt too.
Yeah.
But the sun came out, and it was windy, so a lot of things to consider. Hopefully we've given you some ideas of how to stay alive as you're planning, but realize it's just because you ordered $5,000 worth of Kuyu does not mean it's going to be just peachy, always warm and dry for this fall. It may suck.
It's very true. But also, the location that you're going really does matter, right?
For sure.
Like the caribou hunt, that kind of cold and wet is so much different than what we had on the goat hunt.
So different.
Plug. Call us at Gearful. We'll get you set up.
We do have full-time consultants here. We have the hunt advisors willing to walk you through what gear you need. Whether we sell it or we can recommend it for you, we're trying to provide that full service here. So go to Gearful YouTube channel. You can see Brady talk all about himself and his favorite products. And go to the Huntin' Full YouTube channel and watch some recent hunts that we've been on in Alaska. With this goat hunt, hopefully is coming soon.
I'll have her done here soon.
Are you excited for it, Jess?
Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous.
Why? That you're going to look like you're cold and shivering the whole time?
Oh, no, I'm here to admit that now. I just don't like being on camera. But Brady will make me look cool. He always does.
Yes.
He does have a way of doing that. Okay, down versus synthetic.
Kinda.
And everything else. Paco's ponchos, Jessica's down gloves, wet tents,
Warm tents.
warm tents. But check it out. We're excited to share that film with you. We're still learning. We've been doing this a while, but we don't know everything. And we're trying to learn from mistakes and learn from other people and throw it into our magazine, podcast, and YouTube videos for all of you to help you out and maybe you'll have better hunts this year. So let us know your feedback and what you want to hear more of on the podcast, and we'll visit with you later.